Hello, everybody. Jeff Mason, your Mr. Simple Biz guy here. Well, Happy New Year 2020. Can you believe that? I cannot believe we're here. I hope your holidays were safe. We had a great set of holidays over the past couple of weeks, and we have a really exciting show today. This kicks off our year with a guest, and it's one of our first of 5 guests this year. And today in the studio we have Mr. Garrett Atkins, and welcome, Garrett. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Garrett is the founder of Vi Media, which you see on the TV back behind us here, and also the co-founder of stlouispodcast.com, which we're coming to you from today. And actually, this is a fairly new company, and SimpleBiz 360, I'm the actual first podcast customer that they had. So we're going to remember that 5 or 6 years down the road.
Yes, we will.
That'll be fun. But, we'd love to just explore, and it's always fun to talk to entrepreneurs because at some point, every one of you out there, we all have to start small. And Garrett did as well, and he's blossomed into other things. So we're going to dive back and rewind the clock and kind of find out how things materialize. So whereabouts are you from? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Eureka, Missouri, which is in the greater St. Louis area, about 20 miles outside of downtown St. Louis. So for those of you who are watching that are from the area, you know where that's at. It's right by Six Flags St. Louis. Went to grade school out there, Catholic grade school, then went to public high school, Eureka High School. The whole family lived out there, and lived out there until I moved out of the house. And then I moved downtown St. Louis for 3 years.
No kidding, downtown too.
Yep.
Okay, great. And you're 27. Just had a birthday this past November, so turned 27. And when you rewind the clock to your youth, you're in Eureka. Would you consider yourself a creative person back then?
When I was really young, no, not very creative. I don't think I was what I'd consider creative until probably starting in 19 years old or so, or a little bit after that, when I started working at startup companies.
Okay.
And I started really coming up with my own ideas and understanding and grasping business. Before that, not really academically minded or creative minded, in my opinion. Always been decent at problem solving. But no, I wouldn't say so when I was younger.
Did you, was the whole idea of getting into business eventually attractive to you as a young boy? I mean, did you think about it?
Not when I was younger, no. I was never pushed that way, really just pushed by parents and just by society in general, just go to school, you know, like most people. But what got me in the business is when I was 17 years old, I had someone came and solicited. I lived at my grandparents' house at the time. My whole family did. And someone came and door knocked us, talking about home improvements. And I started arguing with the guy, trying to get him off the front porch, insisted that my grandmother wanted nothing to do with him at the time. He kept rebuttaling me over and over again, and eventually asked if I wanted to do an interview for their company. And I said, sure. Because I believe at the time I was working at Six Flags or Hidden Valley, because there's a ski resort, Hidden Valley, then you have Six Flags. Pretty much half the population of Eureka works at one of the two or both whenever you're 15 to 17 years old. That's just how it is around there. So, so I ended up interviewing for a door-to-door sales job, and that's kind of how I fell in love with sales, not so much business, because really not much business to it.
Right.
But then after I did that for a few years, sold cars for 6 months, thought that was the epitome of being a business person or a salesperson. I was obviously very wrong. Nonetheless, after that, I took my first job at a startup company.
So you're 19 years old. You're at a startup company. What your wheels are turning? How? What are you seeing that you say, hey, this is attractive to me?
Well, I use social media a lot, so I was using Twitter and Facebook a lot at the time. And I would just grow audiences on what's referred to as anonymous accounts. So it's just accounts that don't really represent a person. It's anonymous, so you could name it whatever you want, tweet or push out content about whatever you want. I focused on one topic, pretty much the stupid stuff I was doing, the parties I was going to at the time when I was 19 years old to 21 years old, and grew a big following behind it. And that kind of got me to like social media a lot. And so whenever I had started my first job at a startup company, I was doing inside sales and then eventually inside sales management, managing an inside sales team. So I was still nurturing my sales prowess that I had gained from doing door-to-door for nearly 3 years. And then, of course, car sales for 5-6 months. Took that I knew how to sell in person. I learned how to sell over the phone, but while doing inside sales at the startup company. But I also got involved, since the startup company, you wear more hats than you're supposed to. And
Sure.
that's just the nature of the beast. So I started doing a little bit of social media management as well. And then I dug into marketing as a whole and started educating myself. And I kind of digress a little bit. I went to college for about 3 months in St. Louis Community College, Wildwood, and then dropped out shortly after. And that's when I started selling cars. Then shortly after that, I started working at a startup company.
Okay.
So yeah, I've always been self-taught in most of the things I do, or taught by a mentor or someone else that is good at what they do and had knowledge to pass to me. So
Was there anybody in particular, any business person that you saw or you interacted with that you admired that really kind of ignited your interest and propelled you along the way of your young career?
yeah, so I won't name them by name, but there's some people here in St. Louis that are mentors, 2 or 3 people actually, that have mentored me since about 20 years old. I had a mentor while I was doing door-to-door sales that taught me everything they know to sell in a high-pressure situation, which isn't very useful now, because when you become a better salesperson, you realize you need to be a consultative seller rather than a high-pressure seller. But nonetheless, at the time during door-to-door, that was useful. I had a mentor then I had about 2 or 3 starting at 20, and I'm still in contact with them. Good. As far as people that are more idols than mentors, that I consume their content and try to follow them on the internet, basically. Gary Vaynerchuk's huge to me, Elon Musk, huge. Okay. Those 2 are probably my biggest people that I follow online, and try to see how they handle things as much as I can from being outside of the box. Okay.
Okay. So you're going down this road. You see the attractiveness of social media. Kind of fits you, and it's something that energizes you. Mm-hmm. When does the idea of starting something on your own really start to gel?
When I was at the first startup company, so it was a credit repair company, and how they position themselves as in credit repair. Basically, one of the best ways to attain leads is to partner with mortgage companies, because mortgage companies have a bunch of people that apply for a mortgage. They get turned down because their credit score is not good enough, or they don't have a good DTI, debt to income ratio. Right. They get turned down. They get sent to the credit repair company. So that was the first startup I worked at. Okay. And when I realized how, I won't say it's easy, but I thought starting your own company was impossible. Right. When I worked at a startup company, I realized it's very possible. And I was also starting to read, or should I say listen, to audiobooks a lot at the time. And I didn't read a lot in my youth. I started reading a lot and listening to a lot of audiobooks around the age of 20. One title that really clicked for me was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Sure. Who had claimed to be mentored by, I believe, Andrew Carnegie at the time. Andrew Carnegie, the steel Mongol. So read that book, and that book, in cooperation with me working at a startup and realizing it only cost $59 or so to file for LLC in the state of Missouri. And then after that, you just need to start figuring things out and acquiring knowledge. That's when I started thinking about it. But all my friends were off at college doing what most people did at my age, right. And still do. So I really didn't have anyone to start a company with, so nothing came to fruition. That's when the seeds started planting themselves. So
okay, so very interesting. We talk about in my book, and just digress for a second to my book, third-party influencers, and I've mentioned that there's been a few, but Dale Carnegie for me is ground zero as a third-party influencer. So you start diving into these audiobooks, and folks out there, again, here's a young man at a very young age is realizing that there's benefit to getting advice and seeking advice and listening to, in many cases, you're talking about stuff that's 70 years old. I mean, or, it's old. So there's so much relevance in, that era and other eras that doesn't have to be today where you get this, get these concepts and ideas and you walk away with helpful tools to help you in 2020. You went to Napoleon Hill and it started to gel. You started to realize, you start to see the opportunity. When do you decide that, I think I'm going to start a media company? And I mean, when does that happen?
So when back to the first startup, we cooperated and communicated with a lot of mortgage loan officers. Mortgage loan officers and real estate agents hadn't really started doing personal branding like they are now in 2020. So that was a new concept. And I had no idea who Gary Vaynerchuk was at the time, but apparently by following him, I realized now that he had already discovered that personal branding was going to be a big thing, but I had no idea who he was at the time. So to me, I had discovered that, if these mortgage loan officers and real estate agents started leveraging a personal brand on social media,
Right.
and created a following and pushed out content to these people on social media, they could actually capture more business and use that as leverage to make more money. Now I started creating a lot of connections with top producers. After the startup company, I'd taken a break from working at startup companies, and I had actually kind of went along with my plan and started working at mortgage companies so I could get to know the mortgage industry more. Tried to get my mortgage loan origination license 2 or 3 times to no avail. I think the last time I took the test, before I started my company, I got a 69 when I needed 70. That was terrible. And you had to wait like 10, 15 seconds for the score to load. You sweat that whole 10, 15 seconds. And then,
Oh my gosh.
No, not fun. But nonetheless, like I said
Sure.
at the beginning of this podcast here, is that I'm no good at things I'm not truly interested in. So being at those companies, I jumped from mortgage company to mortgage company, worked at USA Mortgage, American Equity Mortgage, Midwest Mortgage Capital until it got bought out by GSF Mortgage. I met a lot of top producing mortgage guys there, and I started doing a personal brand for a lot of the top producers for free on the side. That way I could learn how it works and how to help them leverage that to make more money. And of course, a lot of people like Gary Vaynerchuk, for instance, talk about doing something for free until you're good at it, or at least doing something for free, even if you are good at it, to get the business in the first place, because it's really hard to say no to free.
Wow.
So then eventually I worked at one more startup company after I worked at the mortgage companies. This was completely different. It was a tech company. I just felt like I needed more knowledge on actually how to start a company before I did it myself. And then after I got that knowledge, I was director of sales and marketing at this final startup. And then after I stopped working there, I had a plethora of people I was doing personal branding for in the mortgage and real estate industry, and a couple of them started paying me. So after I had that, I finally approached a mortgage company itself, closed the deal with them, stopped working at the startup company, and started Buy Media.
Wow.
So lots of job hopping. I think in a 3.5 year period of time, I committed what's referred to as resume suicide by going to 8 different jobs. Back then, it caused a lot of insecurities because everyone's like seeing my LinkedIn change jobs all the time. You know how it is. You're like, oh, what's this guy up to? But I knew what I was doing. Yeah. I knew the path I was treading. It was different from what everyone else was doing, and it was the best way for me to learn at an expedited pace what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, what needs to be delegated if I am to start my own company, and most importantly, what I like and don't like. Because if I focus on what I like, I'm not going to get tired of it easily, and I'm going to be able to succeed doing that. And if I delegate what I don't like to people who actually like doing that, it's going to be done successfully, and those pieces of the start your own business puzzle will be handled correctly.
Interesting. So I'm sensing a little bit of a deliberateness to your approach. I mean, you kind of think, you know what you're doing. Other people looking in from the outside are maybe saying, hey, what's going on? And again, I think that is essential to so many business success stories. And folks, if you're out there listening, think of it this way, and I don't know if you believe what I do, but I believe that, I was taught early on in New York City, hey, don't blend in with 8 out of 10 of your other competitors. Be the one or that 20% that stands out as different. And you may take a chance and you may look a little odd, you may feel a little odd, but as long as you're different and you stand out, people remember you easier. And as long as you're professional, you're eliminating 8 out of 10 competitors. Would you feel that's accurate?
Yeah. Well, one thing, I guess he's passed for a while back now, but Steve Jobs, huge influence on me. His quote about crazy kind of echoes what you were just saying. about the misfits, and the crazy ones are the ones that make a difference. But yeah, I mean, it was 50-50. It wasn't 100% deliberate, because I wasn't 100% confident that it was all going to work out. So I wouldn't say it was all deliberate. At the end of the day, I wasn't sure if I was going to end up starting my own company or not, because I didn't know how it would work out. But Think and Grow Rich was really the straw that broke the camel's back when it came to that book. One of the things that really drilled into my head is that anything that does not defy physics is possible, basically. And you can't give up. And if you don't give up, you haven't failed.
Right.
So that's kind of the mantra I've kept with, and that's what I started with as well. And so that works for me, and that's how my head's been wired ever since.
Okay.
That and additional reading and self-teaching has really helped get to this point.
So you definitely are on a path of improving all the time. I mean, I'm sensing that you definitely don't want to sit still. You want to advance. What's in the name VI? What does VI mean?
So VI is an English word that means to strive to be in competition with. I chose that name because marketing is all about, beating your competition and acquiring more market share. So marketing companies are constantly helping their clients compete and earn more market share. So that's kind of why I chose the name. Yeah.
What year did you actually start VI? What was the
October 13th of 2016. But I had been doing on the side freelance for 2 or 3 years.
So you have the name down. Yeah.
Yep.
The date down, right? That's awesome. So as you travel down the road of owning your own business, tell me how much you think enthusiasm plays in your success factor.
Enthusiasm, that's something I struggle with. I wish I was more enthusiastic, but you have to really believe in what you do. I'd done a lot of sales jobs, and if you don't care about what you're selling, you're not going to do as good as if you were passionate about it. So just being enthusiastic, like hyped up, and when I think enthusiastic, I think loud, hyped up, energetic, all that. I wouldn't say I'm all of those things, or that played a huge part of importance in my success so far. But saying that I'm enthusiastic in the sense that I enjoy what I do, that's huge. I mean, I think that's a necessity. For me, at least. Everyone's wired differently. I'm sure there's plenty of people who have made a huge success story out of themselves and may not care at all about what they're doing, and they're just doing it for the money, and kudos to them if that's what makes them happy. But for me, it's just impossible for me to do something that I'm not enthusiastic about. So,
well, and I think you're speaking to, I appreciate that. I think you're speaking to an audience here that personal branding is important, because you've got a lot of people out here in the solopreneur community that they're the one-man band, one-person show, and they're out there mingling within the community, and the lines get blurred sometimes. You're the company, you're the brand, and you're also the person that is in the same community you serve. So it becomes essential to be passionate about what you do, and to make sure that that everything you do exposes your brand. And do you find that as you went down that path of personal branding? Did you see that? Did you sense that?
Yeah, I think I did. That was one thing I struggled with, because I was focusing on learning how to personal brand others. And while I was in that learning process, like I said, I was committing resume suicide and hurting my own reputation and personal brand in the eyes of those that are judgmental and more orthodox minded, while the path I took was very much unorthodox. There was no one my age that I knew personally. I'm sure there's plenty out there, but no one my age that I knew personally that was taking the path that I chose. And if they were doing it in a completely much more acceptable way, probably, in other people's eyes. So yeah, everything you do, especially in this day and age where internet plays such a big part of business for most companies, it's huge that everything you do echoes your brand and how you want to be perceived. Because as I've heard you actually say on one of your earlier episodes, perception is reality.
Correct. Correct. It's big. You got to embrace that because unfortunately, it might not always be the accuracy of the situation, but it's the perception that counts in the end run. It really does. So, out of all the cast of characters you've listened to, the audiobooks, the people the podcasts you've listened to, and the people you've surrounded yourself with, who gave you the best piece of business advice that you could remember?
Now there's a lot of, and it's Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. It's that. And I will say this: there's a lot of research about that book and the authenticity of it. Mm-hmm. But whether it's authentic or not, like I just said, perception's reality. So that book, just driving across the point, you can do whatever you set your mind to, is a foundational point that must be driven across first before everything else. So if you're learning all the other stuff, all the technical skills, but you don't believe you can do it, none of that really matters. So for me, that was like the huge first thing that I needed to realize, is not to have confidence per se, but the belief in oneself. And that's the biggest, most important thing. That's the first thing anyone that's going to be a solopreneur or entrepreneur or CEO of their own company or leader in any way, shape, or form, or even a successful individual within a company that has goals to achieve, that's huge. Because if you believe, the mind is such a powerful tool that self-manifesting your destiny like that will make you succeed, because subconsciously you will start taking actions towards the goals you're setting for yourself because you actually believe you can do it. But if you don't believe you can do it, you will subconsciously take actions that will make you not succeed. So.
And what you're saying is so applicable to everyone out there in the solopreneur community who's listening to this, because I'm now, tell me if I'm wrong, but even, starting what I've started here, and I run another company alongside this. So this is a lifelong goal for me, a 35-year-old goal. Definitely iced it down 30 years ago to target in on this. But there's so many times that the voices in my head tell me, you can't do this, you're not worthy, you can't, and there's a lot of people out there that probably hear the same thing or maybe even hear it. Did you hear any of those voices? Did you have to battle any of those voices in your head?
After I realized that you can do whatever you set your mind to, no, not for me so much. Every now and then, yes, we all have our bad days or bad months or bad weeks, and some things that don't really have to do with my business may affect my mood, and therefore make me feel less confident in being able to achieve it. And something terrible could happen within the business. A big employee that played a huge part in my company recently left. Of course, that was, felt bad and insecure about the company, but you power through it. You find a solution to the problem. You move on. And I'm huge on only letting a bad thing consume me for a very short period of time, of like 5-10 minutes.
Right.
Really letting it hurt me, letting it process. Because if you don't let it hurt you and you try to suppress it, then it will just find its own way out. So I let it damage me as much as it wants to for 5 or 10 minutes, swallow it, and then start focusing on the solution to the problem. And that's something I've always been big on. That's definitely been a huge tool in my toolbox.
So you're, when I first met you and first got introduced to you, and I'm always trying to read people that I'm going to get into business with, and as we talked about, stlouispodcast.com, I realized that I'm talking to a young man at the time, 26, and there's a fine line between, or not so fine, but there's confidence and there's arrogance. And what you came off as to me when I met you was confident. I didn't see or witness any arrogance. Can you speak to that a little bit? Is the business world, is there a lot of people? Are there a lot of people out there that are operating from the arrogant point of view rather than the confident? And if so, how do you combat that?
Well, first off, I'd like to say there's some people that view me as arrogant. I guess it depends on the day they see me and the mood I'm in. So, but arrogance, I feel like there's two main reasons people, I see it all the time. There's two main reasons people act as arrogant. One, they want to seem smarter than they are in order to give off a different perception to the whoever the target is. Okay. And then two, they may actually think they are better than that person, in which case they're not being smart, because you should never give off that vibe to someone,
Sure.
even if you think you are
Sure.
above them,
Sure.
you know, which doesn't even exist. Everything's all in our heads anyways. So, yeah, those are the two types of situations where I see people be arrogant. I don't think that helps you at all whatsoever. Humility's king. You know what I mean? You only seem cooler if you're being humble, in my opinion.
Bingo.
So, I mean, that's
Great.
how it is. But I did also want to digress back to the topic beforehand, because I kind of blanked out for a second. Lack of confidence and those voices in my head that you were talking about. Every now and then I'd have them, but really the hardest part of the journey, I think, and I'm going back to it because I think it's super important, because the real reason, in my opinion, and that people have voices in their head that are putting themselves down is A, they don't believe in themselves, but B, more than likely, it's from other people. You know, when I was starting my company, my parents, both of them, not huge supporters of me starting my own company. It wasn't until very recently that they started being much more supportive, because it's starting to be much more successful. But it would have been a lot easier to get to this point in the first place had they been supportive, you know, when it wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not just that. It's like friends. So when I wasn't in college and all my friends were, that's going to cause a little bit of insecurity. I'm not going to lie, right? Because what if what I'm trying to do doesn't work out, and I choose not to be an entrepreneur, and I still don't have a college education, and society thinks that's such a big deal, which I honestly don't believe it does. You can get a great paying job without a college degree. Can't be a doctor, lawyer, dentist, but you can get plenty of high paying jobs, especially in business. But the opinions of others were the biggest issues when I was starting all this up. And I think that's a huge point to drive across, because you really just need to, everyone has a mentor of mine, John Burns. He's a business coach with the John C. Maxwell team. He's local here in St. Louis. He says everyone has their own life map, you know, and you need to not listen to others' opinions or look at other people's life maps and try to duplicate that. You just need to stick to your own. And if you're screwing up all the time, that's one thing. Maybe sit down, set some goals, readdress things. But just because other people are disagreeing with what you're doing, unless it's harming others or something terrible, try to tone that stuff out. I mean, take feedback, positive and negative. I mean, negative feedback's most important to me, because then at least I know they're being honest 100%. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, other people's opinions. That was one of the struggles while coming up. So
listen, I experienced a lot of the same thing early on. People say, you know, you can't go to college, you're not cut out for it. You know, you can't obviously do this. I mean, I tried 3 companies, got one off and running with my father for 2 years, and it fell apart. So I mean, you know, I came into what I did after 3 attempts to build something, and it didn't. Yet I still didn't say, you know what, I'm gonna knock myself down or listen to those people that tell me I can't do it. I tried it, stop. You know, you keep going, and luckily there's support of my loving wife to you know, encourage me to do that. But I'm so glad you're touching on that, because you know, there are so many people out there that are hearing that from friends and family, and you know, you have to be true to yourself and try. And I've always said, if you at least go down swinging, you'll never regret trying, but you'll always regret never trying. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
And it's just where we are. And even this today, I'm sure there's people that have known me in my circles and said, you know, write a book. He couldn't write a book. What's his book? And you know, and they're there, and you just have to deflect it. You know, I have to be tough-skinned about it and deflect it and say, you know, and a couple have you know, voiced something like that. But so it's interesting you're talking about that. So now let's take people to the current Vi Media today. It's very interesting, folks. By the way, the website for Vi Media is Vi, correct me if I'm wrong, .media, right?
Correct. That's it, vi.media.
Yeah, there's no com. So this is a platform that you're on that is vi.media. So if you ever want to just check them out. So today, what does Vi Media do? Who do you reach? Who do you service today?
So Vi Media is a full digital marketing agency based in St. Louis, Missouri. So we focus on just making lead generation. So I mean, providing ROI to our clients via advertising efforts is the name of the game. That's first and foremost, most important thing. Aesthetics, organic posting on social media, stuff like that, it's all great, but nothing beats you giving me money and then me making you more money than they gave me. You know what I mean? So that's the name of the game. But we do that through a few avenues. Our focuses are video content, so creating high quality video content, using 4K cameras, top-of-the-line microphones, lighting, effects, all that jazz, editing, pre and post. Doing search engine optimization, otherwise known as SEO, to people within our industry. Web page design, because websites, of course, are part of your digital foundation. And then social media marketing. Paid ads is exclusively what we focus on. So there's people out there who will take you on as a client and they'll just post for you on social media. That's great. But likes, comments, shares, they don't make you more money. It's not, for the most part, that is not a scalable business operation for your company. But doing paid ads on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, what have you, where you can see analytics, data, use that to retarget them later on with email marketing and drive them to your website and drive conversions and see in black and white, this money made me this money. That's what we're all about.
That's what you're all about. And do you service Fortune 500 companies, or do you service smaller companies? What's your? We're
all over the place. So some bigger brands we've worked with is the UPS Store, Metro powered by T-Mobile, Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. Here in St. Louis, Arsenal Credit Union, which is a larger credit union firm here in the St. Louis area. And then we've worked with many medium and small enterprises as well, and then well-renowned startups. On the startup side, we try to stick with startups that we have faith in, of course. We don't want to bring on we turn down clients all the time simply because if we don't think we're going to do a successful job, there's no point in bringing you on. And that's why we have all 5-star reviews. So
that's very, very good. So in terms of you branching out into the stlouispodcast.com, how did that come about? Where was it a hand-in-glove fit for you with Vine Media? Or
well, I mean, it's sure a good fit because Vine Media is a digital marketing agency, and podcasting and video content like we're doing right now is digital marketing essentially. But no, I mean, really, it came about because I was going to start my own podcast, and I just wanted to justify the overhead cost of the equipment and starting my own podcast somehow. So I was like, how about I let other people use the equipment when I'm not using the equipment? And ironically, turned into such a thing to where I haven't even gotten to record my own podcast because I've been so busy with people like you doing your podcast, you know. So, but that's a good thing. That's a good problem to have.
Well, I tell you what, you have set up a great shop here. I mean, I know nothing to compare it against, but I can tell you that Alex Dietrich over here is just absolutely golden. He's done a phenomenal job. And, you know, to just give you some feedback on my experience with this, you know, I'm a guy that I grew up and, you know, I went to high school 72 through 76. And I started going to high school right after FM radio was really gelled. And, you know, we used to, you know, turn the black lights on, have the black light posters, put the headphones on and you know, jam out to Jethro Tull, Aqualung or whatever, you know, you name it. But the funny thing was, you know, as I started to go through my years in high school, you know, FM radio and DJs were such it was an attractive venue for me, and I wanted to be a DJ. And honestly, my friends back then kind of talked me out of it because I had too of a high-pitched voice, but I always wanted to wear these headphones and do something like this. So for me to be here at this point in time, you know, and being able to get in front of a microphone and put a set of headphones on and tell stories and give people content. I mean, I'm like I'm in awe. It's like what I wanted to do when I was 22. Yeah. But you know, here I am doing it, and it's so. It's just
never too late.
Great experience, and I'm so pumped to do it. So pumped to do it with you guys, and it's been just nothing but fun. And you know, again, I'm going to keep going down this road and improving and seeking out ways to make this experience better. But I have to say, anybody in the St. Louis area, or I mean, if you're looking for a home to do it, I mean, these gentlemen have been nothing but accommodating, nothing but professional, and I think if you've listened to any of these, the sound quality and the videography is just, you know, top shelf. And I've had so many people comment about that. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
You know what you're doing. You put it together well. So a couple more questions before we finish. When you consider this book and just some of the things we've talked about, what's your favorite tool you've heard so far out of the SimpleBiz 360?
Really just some of the things that you focused on with solopreneurs. Really, things that apply to them and new entrepreneurs are the thing that hit home with me because that's where I've been personally. And there was a time where I wasn't sure if it was just going to be me as a solopreneur or if I was going to branch out and build a team, which is what I ended up doing because delegation was such a big thing for me. I have ADD, so me trying to focus on things I don't like was just not even an option. So I knew from the beginning, I was like, okay, well, it's not just going to be me. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Right. But no, I found a few tools, especially in the past couple episodes, or I think it was 3 episodes ago, that was very useful to me.
Good. Well, good. So, so right now you're 27 years old. I know you got a dog, Zelda.
I do.
You
I have a puppy, dog? Zelda, 8 months old now.
And how about are you single and available?
I have a
there?
girlfriend.
Okay,
I have a girlfriend. Yeah, we got a place in Richmond Heights, not too far from here. So
okay, well, very good. So going down the road of the future, what most energizes you about your future and where you're taking your companies?
Thing I'm most energized about is that I used to be very fast-paced and impatient. I always wanted to reach my goals and set. I wouldn't say they were unattainable, but they were just too fast-paced to goals. So now I'm much more patient. So the thing that energizes me the most is thinking about where I'm going to be knowledge-wise a year from now. Because like if I look back in October of 2016, where I was had much less humility and was much less humble, thinking I was hot shit, now I look back and I'm like, wow, I knew nothing, when I started this company. And even if I look back just a year ago rather than 3 years ago, I realized how much I did not know. So it energizes me to think about a year, 2, 5 years from now, how I will look back on today and how much I knew and how much more I will know then. And that's like one of the things that excites me the most. It honestly gets me to smile because every time I look back like that, I realize how much of an idiot I was for thinking I knew as much as I really didn't. So,
well, I love hearing that because I've got 5 years of programming. There's 255 tools, and I've only been through a couple. So hopefully, there's certainly some that'll jump out and help you on your path forward. But it's when you really look at, and I love what you say about humility, because honestly, Garrett, in order for anyone out there in the listening audience, to improve, you first have to be humble enough to say, there might be a better way to do this. Maybe I should try another way. And I just think, one of the things I see and feel is that there's just so many people that say, you know what, I don't need that. I don't want that. I can do this my own way. And yes, you can. I'm sure there's tens of thousands of people that do that. But you know what? You reached out to a book that was who knows how many years old, 60, 70 years old, and it propelled you and it stuck with you. And I've reached out to a book that was written in the 30s and it stuck with me, and it's appropriate and applicable to today. So there is information out there that can help people, and certainly we hope you continue to join us in these podcasts, because what are we doing every single week? We're talking about improvement. We're saying to you, we want to help you put more money in your pocket, more in the bank, to have more to save for your, for the future when you retire, to do better and not lose customers, and allow your initial investment to keep giving you a return on investment. You mentioned return on investment when with your customers at Vi. That's a big thing, folks. That's what we're talking about each and every week. So we hope you join us together, join with us, and take this journey with us. And in closing, I'm a rocker, and make no bones about it. We talked about it a lot. So I mean, I don't know. Is there any rock and roll band from my era, or if not, any rock and roll band like a Lost in the Shuffle track?
Not rock and roll. I got something for you.
Okay.
So it's completely different genre, but it's 1940s. It's a band called the Ink Spots. I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire by the Ink Spots. Check it out.
Ink Spots from the 40s. Big band era, or what? I don't.
No, so basically I played a video game called Fallout 3, and it basically had a bunch of music in it from that era. That's where I discovered that song, and then I liked that song so much that I dug into that artist and a bunch of other artists from that era. But that song's my favorite, and that artist is my favorite from there.
How cool is that? You know, my daughter, my oldest daughter, loves the Frank Sinatra era, and truly that
So do I.
that I mean, it's really, and so every time we get together with her, and it's neat because there's some good quality stuff, obviously, coming out of every generation of music. Even today, there's great stuff. But hey. Honestly, thank you so much for everything you've done for Simple Biz 360 in the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for spending the time with us today. And folks, again, Garrett Atkins, it's vi.media. You can see it right there on the TV. And it's stlouispodcast.com. We invite you to toggle these guys and if you're interested and inquire about the services. And Alex, another great show. Thank you so much. And way to kick off 2020, huh? Wild. I love that. 2020,
I like it too.
Just cool. So
Can I add one thing?
you bet.
Okay, I was going to say just for the Simple Biz 360 podcast, and he was just talking about right before we went into the rock and roll band stuff, is that if you're not making improvement, you're never staying still. You're either making improvements or you're getting worse, because that's how your brain's working. You're forgetting things over time, or you're bringing on new knowledge over time. So I think that's where this is just a huge value to your audience, because it's a way for them to easily consume content. And instead of getting worse over time because they're doing nothing and you're never staying still, this is a way for them to improve instead.
Well, I appreciate that. Hey, listen, $18.95 in paperback, $8.95 on ebook. It's on Amazon.com. You can go to SimpleBiz360.com or SimpleBiz360.com. You can order direct through to Amazon through our website. And again, thanks so much, Alex. Great job, and we'll see you next week.
All right. See you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Garrett.